At 9:47 p.m., Daniel Cross opened his door to find a soaking wet billionaire offering him a deal that would destroy everything he knew about grief, money, and second chances. She didn't want his friendship. She didn't want romance. She wanted something far more impossible, and she was willing to pay any price to get it. This is the story of two broken people who made a choice that should have ended in disaster, but instead became something neither of them saw coming. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The knock came during the worst storm Daniel Cross had seen in 3 years. Not a polite knock. Not the kind neighbors make when they need to borrow sugar or ask about a package. This was urgent, insistent, the kind that said someone's life is different on the other side of this door, and they know it. Daniel was halfway through washing dishes, his hands still covered in soap suds, when he heard it. His 7-year-old son Noah was already asleep upstairs, and the house was quiet except for the rain hammering against the windows, like it had a personal vendetta against the glass. He dried his hands on a towel that had seen better days and walked to the front door, confused. It was 9:47 on a Wednesday night. Nobody came by this late. Nobody came by at all, really. When he opened the door, the woman standing there didn't make sense. She was drenched. Her dark hair was plastered to her face and neck. Her expensive-looking coat, he could tell it was expensive even soaked through, hung heavy on her shoulders. She was shaking, though whether from cold or something else, he couldn't tell. Her eyes were red-rimmed, makeup smudged, and she looked at him like he was the answer to a question she'd been asking for years. "Daniel Cross?" Her voice was steady despite everything else about her that wasn't. "Yeah?" He stood in the doorway, blocking the entrance without meaning to, just instinct when a stranger shows up in the middle of a storm looking like the world's ending. "I need your help." She swallowed hard. I know how this looks, but I wouldn't be here if I had any other option." Daniel glanced past her at the black car idling at the curb, rain streaming off its hood. No Uber driver sat that still or drove a car that nice. "Do I know you?" "No." She pushed wet hair back from her face. "But I know you. I know you lost your wife 2 years ago. I know you're raising your son alone. I know you work 3 jobs and you're still barely keeping the lights on." The words hit him like a slap. Not because they were cruel, but because they were true, and hearing them out loud from a stranger made them feel even heavier than they already were. "Who the hell are you?" "My name is Elena Royce." She said it like he should recognize it. He didn't. "Can I come in? Please. Just 5 minutes. If you want me to leave after that, I'll go and you'll never see me again." Every instinct Daniel had told him to shut the door. This woman was trouble. Rich trouble, which was usually the worst kind. But there was something in her eyes that stopped him, something desperate and honest and breaking. He stepped aside. Elena walked past him into the small living room, dripping water onto the worn carpet. She didn't sit, didn't take off her coat, just stood there like she was trying to figure out how to say something impossible. Daniel closed the door and crossed his arms. "You've got 5 minutes." She turned to face him, and for a long moment she didn't speak. Just looked at him like she was trying to decide if he was real. "I want you to help me have a child." The words hung in the air between them like smoke. Daniel stared at her. "What?" "I want you to help me have a child," she repeated, slower this time, like maybe he hadn't heard her right the first time. "I'll pay you, whatever you need. Enough to clear your debts, put your son through college, set you up for life. I just need—" Her voice cracked. "I need this." "Are you insane?" Daniel's voice came out harder than he meant it to. You don't just show up at someone's house and, I know how it sounds. Do you? Because it sounds completely out of your mind." Elena's jaw tightened. "I lost my husband and daughter 4 years ago. Car accident. Since then I've tried everything. Fertility treatments, donors, surrogates. Nothing's worked. The doctors say there's no medical reason, but it doesn't happen. And I've been looking for someone who—" She stopped, choosing her words carefully. "Someone who understands loss. Someone who's a good father. Someone who wouldn't want my money or my name. Just someone honest." Daniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. "So you hired a private investigator to dig into my life and decided I was desperate enough to go along with this?" "Yes." She didn't flinch. "That's exactly what I did." The honesty of it caught him off guard. "Get out." "Daniel." "I said get out." He pointed at the door. I don't know what kind of person you think I am, but I'm not for sale, and I'm sure as hell not doing, whatever this is, with some rich stranger who thinks she can buy anything she wants. Elena's face went pale. For a second he thought she might cry, but instead she just nodded slowly. You're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come. She walked past him toward the door, moving like someone who'd been rejected so many times it didn't even hurt anymore. Her hand was on the doorknob when she stopped. I had a daughter, she said quietly, not looking at him. Her name was Lily. She was 5. She liked dinosaurs and refused to wear anything that wasn't purple. When she laughed, it sounded like her voice broke. It sounded like everything good in the world. And when she died, I died too. I just kept breathing. Daniel felt something twist in his chest. He knew that feeling. He knew it too well. I don't want your pity, Elena continued. I don't want anything from you except an answer. Not tonight. But when you've had time to think about it, if you change your mind. She pulled a card from her coat pocket and set it on the small table by the door. That's my number. It's always on. She opened the door and stepped back out into the rain. Daniel watched her walk to the car, watched her get in, watched the taillights disappear down the street. Then he closed the door and stood there in the silence, staring at the puddle of water she'd left on his floor. The card sat on the table like a live grenade. He didn't pick it up, didn't throw it away either, just left it there and went back to the dishes. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain, thinking about Elena Royce's wet hair and broken voice, and the way she'd said her daughter's name like it still hurt to breathe. He thought about Noah asleep down the hall and how much of his childhood was being spent in hand-me-down clothes and a house with a leaky roof Daniel couldn't afford to fix. He thought about the last conversation he'd had with his wife before she died, about how she'd made him promise to give Noah the best life possible. He was failing at that promise every single day. At 3 a.m., he got up, went downstairs, and picked up Elena's card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering, the kind of card people who had people carried. Just her name and a phone number. Nothing else. He turned it over in his hands, then he put it in his wallet and went back to bed. Three days passed before Daniel called the number. He'd spent those days going through the motions, fixing Mrs. Patterson's sink, replacing the Johnsons' water heater, taking Noah to school, and picking him up and making dinner and pretending everything was normal. But the card sat in his wallet like a weight, and every time he went to pay for something and saw it there, Elena's words echoed in his head. Enough to clear your debts, put your son through college, set you up for life. On Friday night, after Noah was asleep, Daniel poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey he couldn't afford and sat at the kitchen table and dialed the number. She answered on the first ring. Daniel? Not a question. She knew it was him. I haven't decided anything, he said. I know. I need to understand what you're actually asking for. There was a long pause. Can we meet somewhere neutral? A coffee shop, a park, wherever you're comfortable. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. There's a diner called Rosie's on 5th Street. I'll be there. She hung up. Daniel sat there with the phone in his hand, wondering what the hell he was doing. Rosie's Diner had been around since before Daniel was born. Red vinyl booths, checkered floor, coffee that tasted like motor oil but somehow worked. He got there 15 minutes early and took a booth in the back, away from the windows. Elena arrived exactly at 10. She looked different than she had that night. Put together. Hair dried and styled, wearing clothes that probably cost more than Daniel's car, but didn't scream money. She spotted him and walked over, sliding into the booth across from him. Thanks for coming, she said. A waitress appeared before Daniel could respond. Coffee? Please, Elena said. The waitress poured 2 cups and disappeared. They sat in silence for a moment, both of them stirring sugar into coffee they probably wouldn't drink. Why me? Daniel asked finally. You've got money. You could find someone, I don't know, someone who actually wants this. I've tried that. Elena's voice was quiet. I've been through agencies, met with donors who wanted contracts and lawyers and everything sterile and documented, but that's not... I don't want a transaction. I don't want a stranger's genetic material in a vial. I want... She stopped, searching for words. I want my child to have a father who knows what it means to lose everything and keep going anyway. Someone who won't run when things get hard. Someone real. You don't know me. I know enough. She met his eyes. I know you've worked 3 jobs for 2 years to keep your son fed and housed. I know you've never missed a parent-teacher conference even when it meant losing a shift. I know you read to him every night before bed. I know you're a good father, Daniel. That's rare. Daniel felt exposed, like she'd been watching him through a window he didn't know existed. What exactly are you proposing? Elena took a breath. I want to try to have a child together, naturally. No doctors, no procedures, just the way people have been doing it for thousands of years. If it works, I'll take full financial responsibility. You can be as involved as you want to be or not involved at all. That's your choice. But either way, you and Noah will be taken care of. I'll put it in writing. You want me to... Daniel couldn't even finish the sentence. I want honesty, Elena said. I want someone who won't pretend to care about me for money. I want someone who understands that some losses never heal. They just become part of who you are. And I want a child who comes from that understanding, not from some clinic where I'm just another client. Daniel leaned back in the booth. This is insane. I know. You don't even know if it would even work. No. Elena's voice was steady. But I'm willing to try. And if you say yes, I'll make sure that trying doesn't cost you anything. If it doesn't work out, you still walk away with enough to give Noah the life he deserves. And if it does work, then we figure it out together. She paused. I'm not asking you to marry me, Daniel. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm just asking you to help me have a child with someone who won't treat it like a business deal. The coffee had gone cold. Daniel thought about Noah's shoes with holes in the soles, thought about the overdue notices stacked on his kitchen counter, thought about his wife's voice saying, "Promise me you'll give him everything." I need time, he said. Take all the time you need. And if I say yes, there are conditions. Elena nodded. Name them. Noah comes first, always. Whatever happens, he doesn't get hurt by this. Agreed. No lawyers until we figure out if this is even going to work. I'm not signing my life away before I know what I'm doing. Fair. And you're honest with me. About everything. I don't care how ugly it is. If you're having second thoughts, if you change your mind, if something isn't working, you tell me. I will. Elena's eyes didn't waver. Same goes for you. Daniel nodded slowly. Give me a week. Okay. She stood to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, I know this is asking a lot. More than I have any right to ask. But I wouldn't be here if I wasn't desperate. And I wouldn't have chosen you if I didn't think you could handle it. You don't know if I can handle it. No, Elena said, but you do. She left money for the coffee and walked out. Daniel sat there for another 20 minutes, staring at nothing, trying to figure out if he was considering the craziest thing he'd ever heard or the answer to a prayer he'd been too afraid to say out loud. The week that followed was hell. Daniel went through his days on autopilot, his mind stuck on Elena's proposal. He played every scenario, every angle, every possible outcome. He thought about what his wife would say if she were still alive. He thought about whether he was betraying her memory or honoring her wish for Noah to have a better life. On Wednesday, he talked to his brother Marcus over beers. So let me get this straight, Marcus said, leaning back in his chair. A billionaire shows up at your door, wants you to knock her up, and is willing to pay you enough money to never worry again. That's the short version. And you're actually considering saying no? It's not that simple. The hell it isn't. Marcus shook his head. Danny, you're drowning. You've been drowning since Rachel died. This woman is throwing you a lifeboat, and you're sitting here wondering if it's the right color. It's not about the money. Then what's it about? Daniel didn't have an answer for that. On Friday, he picked Noah up from school, and they went to the park. Daniel pushed him on the swings, watched him climb the jungle gym, and tried to imagine what his life would look like with enough money that he didn't have to choose between groceries and rent. Dad? Noah called from the top of the slide. Watch this! He slid down, laughing the whole way. Daniel caught him at the bottom. Nice one, buddy. Can we get ice cream? Daniel thought about the $17 in his wallet. Sure. They walked to the corner store and got 2 cones, chocolate for Noah, vanilla for Daniel, and sat on the curb eating them while the sun went down. "Dad," Noah said through a mouthful of ice cream, "are we poor?" The question hit Daniel like a punch. "What?" "Tommy at school said we're poor because my shoes have holes and I don't have an iPad." Daniel set down his cone. "Noah, look at me." Noah looked up, chocolate smeared on his chin. "We don't have a lot of money right now," Daniel said carefully, "but that doesn't mean we're poor. You have a roof over your head, food to eat, and a dad who loves you more than anything in the world. That makes us pretty rich." "But Tommy has—" "I don't care what Tommy has." Daniel's voice was firmer than he meant it to be. "What matters is that we take care of each other, okay?" Noah nodded slowly. "Okay." They finished their ice cream in silence. That night, after Noah was asleep, Daniel sat at the kitchen table with Elena's card in front of him. He thought about his son asking if they were poor. He thought about Elena's daughter who liked purple and dinosaurs. He thought about second chances and desperate choices, and whether wanting a better life for your kid made you selfish or just human. At 11 p.m., he picked up his phone and called. Elena answered immediately. "Hello? I'll do it," Daniel said. "But we do this my way." There was a pause. Then, "What's your way?" "We take it slow. We get to know each other first. If at any point either of us wants out, we're out. No hard feelings. And Noah doesn't know anything until we figure out if this is actually going to work." "Agreed. When do you want to start?" "Tomorrow," Elena said. "If that's not too soon." Daniel closed his eyes, took a breath, jumped. "Tomorrow's fine. I'll text you an address. 7 p.m.? I'll be there." He hung up and sat in the dark kitchen, wondering what he'd just agreed to. The address Elena texted him the next day was in a part of town Daniel rarely visited, the kind where houses had gates and driveways longer than his street. He pulled up in his beat-up truck and immediately felt out of place. The house wasn't a mansion, but it was close. Modern, glass and steel, the kind of place you saw in magazines. He parked and walked to the front door, his heart hammering. Elena answered before he could knock. "You came," she said, and there was relief in her voice, like maybe she'd thought he wouldn't. "I said I would." She stepped back to let him in. "Come in." The inside was as intimidating as the outside. High ceilings, expensive art on the walls, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum, but it was also empty in a way Daniel recognized. The kind of empty that came from living alone in a space too big for one person. "Can I get you something to drink?" Elena asked. "Coffee, water, something stronger?" "Water's fine." She led him to the kitchen, all marble countertops and stainless steel, and poured 2 glasses. They stood on opposite sides of the island, both of them holding their glasses like shields. "I wasn't sure you'd actually come," Elena admitted. "I wasn't sure either." "What changed your mind?" Daniel thought about Noah asking if they were poor. "My son deserves better than what I can give him right now. And you're offering a way to make that happen, so here I am." Elena nodded slowly. "I appreciate your honesty." "You said you wanted honesty. That's what you're getting." "Good." She set down her glass. "So, where do we start?" "You tell me about your husband," Daniel said, "and your daughter. The real story, not the version you tell people at parties." Elena's face went pale. "Why?" "Because if we're doing this, I need to know who I'm doing it with, and you said you wanted someone who understands loss. So help me understand yours." For a long moment, Elena just stood there, and Daniel thought maybe he'd pushed too hard. But then she nodded and walked to the living room. He followed. They sat on opposite ends of a couch that probably cost more than Daniel's yearly salary. "His name was Marcus," Elena began, her voice soft. "We met in college. He was studying architecture, I was studying business. Everyone said we wouldn't last because we were too different, but that's exactly why it worked. He saw the world in shapes and light. I saw it in numbers and strategy. Together we—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "Together, we made sense." Daniel listened, not interrupting. "Lily came 3 years after we got married. She was perfect. I know everyone says that about their kids, but she really was. Smart and funny and so goddamn stubborn. She got that from me." Elena's smile was sad. "Marcus used to joke that we'd created a monster." "What happened?" Wrong place, wrong time. We were driving home from dinner. Marcus was driving. I was in the passenger seat. Lily was in the back. Some kid ran a red light going 80 miles an hour. Hit us on the driver's side. Her voice went flat. Marcus died on impact. Lily held on for 3 days before we had to make a choice. Daniel felt like he'd been punched. I'm sorry. I was in the hospital for 2 months. Broken ribs, collapsed lung, shattered pelvis. When I got out, I went back to an empty house and I just stopped. Stopped caring about the business. Stopped seeing friends. Stopped pretending I was okay. I spent a year drowning in grief before I finally realized I had 2 choices. Let it destroy me or find a reason to keep going. And you chose to keep going. I chose to try. Elena looked at him. I poured everything into trying to have another child. Not to replace them. You can't replace people you love. But because I needed something to live for that wasn't just survival. And nothing worked. Every failed attempt felt like losing them all over again. They sat in silence. My wife's name was Rachel, Daniel said finally. We met at a hardware store. I was buying supplies for a job. She was looking for paint. We started talking and didn't stop for 3 hours. Married a year later. How did she... Aneurysm. One day she was fine, the next day she was gone. No warning, no chance to say goodbye. I came home from work and found her on the kitchen floor. His voice cracked. Noah was at my mom's. At least he didn't see her like that. Elena reached across the couch and took his hand. It wasn't romantic, wasn't sexual, just human. 2 people who understood what it meant to have the bottom drop out of everything. They sat like that for a while, holding hands on a stranger's couch, connected by losses they'd never fully heal from. This is crazy, Daniel said eventually. I know. We barely know each other. I know. But you really think this could work? Elena looked at him. I think if we're both honest and we both try, it has a chance. That's more than I've had in a long time. Daniel nodded slowly. Okay. Okay. Let's try. Meg. They spent the next 2 weeks just talking. Elena would come to Daniel's house after Noah went to bed, or he'd go to hers after his last job of the day. They'd sit at kitchen tables or on couches and just talk about their lives, their losses, their fears. Daniel told her about the crushing weight of single parenthood and trying to be enough for a kid who'd already lost too much. Elena told him about the loneliness of having everything except the one thing that mattered. Slowly, carefully, they built something that resembled trust. On the 3rd week, Elena came over with takeout and insisted on staying while Noah was still awake. Are you sure? Daniel asked. I want to meet him, if that's okay with you. It wasn't okay, not really, but Daniel nodded anyway. Noah was immediately suspicious when he saw the stranger in their living room. He hid behind Daniel's leg and peeked out at Elena like she might be dangerous. Noah, this is my friend Elena, Daniel said. Elena, this is my son Noah. Hi, Noah, Elena said, crouching down to his level. Your dad's told me a lot about you. Noah didn't say anything. I brought pizza, Elena continued. Pepperoni. Is that okay? Noah's eyes widened. Pepperoni pizza was a luxury they couldn't usually afford. Can I, Dad? Yeah, buddy, go wash your hands. Noah ran off. Elena stood, and Daniel saw something in her face that looked like pain and hope mixed together. You okay? He asked. She would have been about his age, Elena said quietly. If she'd... I'm sorry. Don't be. I asked for this. Dinner was awkward at first. Noah kept staring at Elena like she was an alien, and Elena looked like she might cry every time he laughed. But gradually, slowly, the tension eased. Noah started showing Elena his drawings, telling her about school, asking her questions with the blunt honesty only 7-year-olds can manage. Why do you talk fancy? He asked through a mouthful of pizza. Noah, Daniel started, but Elena laughed. I don't know, she said. Do I? Yeah, like people on TV. Well, I'll try to talk more normal then. Okay. After dinner, Elena helped clean up and Noah showed her his room. Daniel watched from the doorway as she knelt beside Noah's bed and listened to him explain his entire dinosaur collection with the seriousness of a museum curator. When she finally left, hours later than she'd planned, she stood at the door and looked at Daniel with something that might have been gratitude, Thank you, she said. For what? For letting me in. For trusting me with him. You did good. He liked you. Yeah? Her smile was small but real. Yeah. She left, and Daniel closed the door and leaned against it, wondering how he'd gone from turning her away in a rainstorm to letting her into the most important part of his life. Woke. A month into their arrangement, things shifted. It happened gradually, then all at once. The conversations got deeper, the silences more comfortable, the distance between them smaller. Elena started coming over more often, bringing groceries or helping with repairs Daniel couldn't afford to hire out. Noah adored her, asked when she was coming back whenever she left. And Daniel found himself looking forward to seeing her in a way that had nothing to do with their arrangement. It scared the hell out of him. One night, after Noah was asleep, Elena and Daniel sat in his backyard with cheap beer and expensive silence. I think we should try, Elena said. Daniel's heart jumped. Try? The reason I'm here. The reason we're doing this. She looked at him. Unless you've changed your mind. No, Are you sure? I'm sure. She paused. But only if you are. Daniel thought about all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Thought about the ways it could go wrong, the complications, the risks. Then he thought about Elena's hand in his that first night, about Noah's laughter over pizza, about second chances and desperate choices. I'm sure, he said. That night, they tried. It wasn't romantic or passionate or anything like the movies. It was awkward and tentative and filled with the kind of honesty that comes from two broken people trying to make something new. But it was real. And when it was over, Elena didn't leave. She stayed, lying next to Daniel in the dark, both of them staring at the ceiling like they couldn't quite believe what they'd done. What now? Daniel asked. Now we wait, Elena said, and we keep trying, and we see what happens. And if it doesn't work, then we deal with that when it happens. They lay there in silence, not touching but not apart either. Two people who'd lost everything once and were terrified of losing everything again. But this time, at least, they weren't alone. The waiting was worse than Daniel expected. 2 weeks passed with nothing but silence and uncertainty. Elena kept coming over, kept spending time with Noah, kept sitting at Daniel's kitchen table like she belonged there. But there was a tension now that hadn't existed before. A question hanging in the air that neither of them wanted to ask out loud. On the 15th day, Elena showed up at his door in the middle of the afternoon. Daniel was replacing a faucet in the bathroom when he heard the knock. It didn't work, she said when he opened the door. Her face was composed, controlled, but her eyes told a different story. You're sure? I'm sure. She walked past him into the house without waiting for an invitation. I took 3 tests, all negative. Daniel closed the door and followed her to the living room. She stood with her arms wrapped around herself, staring at nothing. We can try again, he said. Can we? Her voice cracked. How many times, Daniel? How many times do I keep doing this before I accept that maybe it's just not going to happen? You don't know that. I've been trying for 4 years. 4 years of failures and false hopes, and she stopped, took a shaky breath. Maybe this was stupid. Maybe I'm just chasing something that doesn't exist anymore. Daniel crossed the room and stood in front of her. Hey, look at me. She didn't. Elena, look at me. She lifted her eyes and he saw the same desperation he'd seen that first night in the rain. You want to quit? He asked. I don't know what I want. That's not true. You know exactly what you want. You're just scared you won't get it. Of course I'm scared. Her voice rose. I'm terrified. Every time I hope for something, it gets ripped away, every single time. So, yeah, maybe it's easier to quit now before I let myself believe this could actually work. Then quit, Daniel said flatly. Walk away. Go back to your big empty house and your money and your safe, controlled life where nothing hurts because you don't let anything in. Elena's eyes flashed. You don't know anything about my life. I know you showed up at my door in a storm because you were desperate enough to ask a stranger for help. I know you've spent the last month and a half getting to know my kid and pretending you're okay when you're falling apart. I know you're not half as tough as you think you are. Screw you. Yeah? Well, screw you too for giving up after one try. You think this is hard? Try raising a kid alone on $17 an hour. Try explaining to your 7-year-old why he can't have the same stuff other kids have. Try living every single day knowing you're failing the person you love most. They stood there glaring at each other, both breathing hard. I'm not giving up, Elena said finally, her voice quiet. I'm tired, Daniel. I'm so tired of wanting something I can't have. The fight went out of him. I know. Do you? Yeah. He ran a hand through his hair. Rachel and I tried for 2 years to have another kid, before she died. Every month it didn't happen felt like another thing we were failing at. So yeah, I know what it's like to want something so bad it hurts. Elena's expression softened. You never told me that. You never asked. They stood in silence for a moment. I'm sorry, Elena said, for snapping at you. Don't be. I probably deserved it. You did. A small smile tugged at her lips. But I'm still sorry. Daniel shook his head. So what do you want to do? Try again, Elena said without hesitation. If you're willing. I'm willing. Even though it might not work? Especially because it might not work. Nothing worth having comes easy, right? Elena laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. When did you become an optimist? About 5 minutes ago. Don't expect it to last. She stepped forward and hugged him, quick and tight and unexpected. Daniel froze for a second, then wrapped his arms around her and held on. Thank you, she whispered against his shoulder. For what? For not letting me quit. Give it a few months. You might wish I had. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. I should go. I need to pull myself together before I fall apart completely. You can fall apart here if you want. I won't judge. Yes, you will. Yeah, Daniel admitted. But only a little. Elena laughed for real this time. She squeezed his hand once and headed for the door. Same time next week? She asked. Same time next week. She left, and Daniel stood in his living room wondering when exactly this arrangement had stopped being just business and started feeling like something else entirely. The second month was harder than the first. They tried 3 more times, and each time ended the same way. Elena showing up with negative tests, and Daniel trying to figure out how to comfort someone he barely knew, but somehow cared about anyway. Noah noticed the change in both of them. Is Elena sad? He asked one night at dinner. Daniel looked up from his plate. What makes you think that? She doesn't smile as much, and sometimes when she thinks I'm not looking, she looks like she's going to cry. She's going through some stuff, buddy, adult stuff. Is she sick? No, nothing like that. She's trying to do something really hard and it's not working out the way she wants. Noah thought about this while chewing his chicken nugget. Like when I couldn't learn to ride my bike? Yeah, kind of like that. But I learned eventually. Maybe Elena will too. Daniel felt something twist in his chest. Maybe she will. You should tell her not to give up. That's what you told me. I'll tell her. Good. Noah went back to his dinner, the problem solved in his 7-year-old mind. If only it were that simple. The truth was, Daniel didn't know how to help Elena. Every failed attempt chipped away at her hope a little more, and he watched her slowly retreat back into the controlled, distant version of herself she'd been when they first met. She still came over, still spent time with Noah, but there was a wall going up that Daniel couldn't quite break through. It came to a head on a Saturday afternoon in the middle of the 3rd month. Elena had taken Noah to the park while Daniel finished a job, and when they came back, Noah ran inside, but Elena stayed on the porch. We need to talk, she said. Daniel's stomach dropped. Okay. Not here. Can you get someone to watch Noah for an hour? Yeah, my brother's around the corner. What's this about? Just, please, an hour. She looked scared, and that scared him. Daniel called Marcus, who showed up 20 minutes later with beer and questions Daniel didn't answer. He left Noah with his uncle and got in Elena's car, and they drove in silence to a park on the edge of town. They sat on a bench overlooking a pond, watching ducks swim in circles. I can't do this anymore, Elena said. The words hit Daniel like a physical blow. What? This. Us. Whatever this is. She wouldn't look at him. It's not working. 3 months and nothing's happened, and I'm making you miserable. I'm making myself miserable, and it's not fair to Noah to keep dragging this out. So You're just quitting after everything? I'm being realistic. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, right? Well, I've been insane for 4 years. I think it's time to stop. Daniel stared at her. You're scared. Of course I'm scared. No, I mean, you're scared because you're starting to care. About me, about Noah. And that terrifies you because everyone you've ever cared about has been taken away. Elena's jaw tightened. Don't psychoanalyze me. Then don't run away because things are getting real. This isn't real, Daniel. This is a business arrangement that got out of hand. I should never have involved your son. I should never have... She stopped, swallowed hard. I'm ending this before someone gets hurt. Too late. Noah's already attached to you. Hell, I'm already... Daniel caught himself. You don't get to just walk away now. Watch me. She stood, but Daniel grabbed her wrist. Let go, she said. No. Daniel, you told me you wanted honesty, so here's some honesty. I think you're full of shit. I think you're using this as an excuse to run because you're afraid of what happens if it actually works, if you actually get what you want, because then you'd have to live with the guilt of being happy again. Elena yanked her arm away. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? You think I don't wake up every day feeling guilty that I'm still here and Rachel isn't? You think I don't feel like I'm betraying her every time I laugh or enjoy something? That's what loss does. It makes you feel like you don't deserve to move forward. This isn't the same. It's exactly the same. You're punishing yourself for surviving when your family didn't. And you're using this, us, as another way to prove to yourself that you don't deserve to be happy. Stop it. Why? Because I'm right? Elena's face crumpled. Because it hurts. The fight went out of both of them. Daniel stood and pulled her into a hug, and this time she didn't resist. She buried her face in his shoulder and sobbed like she'd been holding it in for years. Daniel held her and let her break. Because sometimes that's all you can do. When she finally pulled away, her makeup was ruined and her eyes were red and she looked more real than she ever had. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Neither do I. What if it doesn't work? Then it doesn't work. But at least we tried. What if it does work and I'm a terrible mother? What if I can't? What if I can't love this child the way I loved Lily? You will, Daniel said, with certainty he didn't quite feel. Because you're not trying to replace her. You're trying to make room for someone new. Elena wiped her eyes with shaking hands. I'm a mess. Yeah, well, join the club. We meet Thursdays. She laughed, watery and broken. I'm sorry for freaking out. Don't be. You're allowed to freak out. Just don't run away while you're doing it. I'll try. That's all I'm asking. They sat back down on the bench, and Elena leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder. He put his arm around her, and they stayed like that until the sun started to set. We should get back, Elena said eventually. Noah's probably driving your brother crazy. Noah drives everyone crazy. It's his gift. They stood and walked back to the car, and Daniel noticed Elena's hand slip into his like it belonged there. He didn't pull away. After that day, something shifted between them. Elena stopped trying to control everything and started letting herself just exist in the moment. She came over without calling first, helped with bedtime routines, learned to cook terrible scrambled eggs in Daniel's kitchen. Noah started calling her Aunt Elena without anyone telling him to, and she cried the first time he said it. Daniel found himself looking forward to her visits for reasons that had nothing to do with their arrangement. He liked the way she argued with him over stupid things, the way she read to Noah in different voices, the way she laughed at his terrible jokes. He liked her, messy and broken and real. And that scared him more than anything. They tried again in the 4th month, and again it didn't work. This time, Elena took it better. It's okay, she said when she told him. We keep going. You sure? I'm sure. But Daniel could see the hope dimming in her eyes, and it killed him. Marcus cornered him one night when he came to pick up Noah. You're in love with her, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. What? No, it's not like that. Then what's it like? Daniel didn't have an answer. Look, Marcus said, popping open a beer. I'm not judging, but you need to figure out what you're doing here, because from where I'm sitting, this stopped being about money and kids a long time ago. She lost her family, Marcus. I'm helping her. And what happens when this doesn't work? What happens when she decides it's not worth it anymore and walks away? You think Noah's not going to be devastated? You think you're not? I can handle it. Can you? Marcus looked at him hard. Because Rachel's been gone 2 years and you've barely survived. You really want to add another loss on top of that? This is different. How? Daniel opened his mouth and closed it, because Marcus was right and they both knew it. Just be careful, Marcus said quietly. I don't want to see you get hurt again. Too late for that, Marcus sighed. Yeah, I figured. That conversation stuck with Daniel for days. He tried to pull back to create distance between himself and Elena, but it was like trying to unring a bell. She was already part of his life, woven into his days in ways he hadn't noticed until he tried to untangle them. And Noah made it impossible. When's Elena coming over? Became his constant refrain. She'd started taking him to the library on Wednesdays and the park on Saturdays, and Daniel watched his son come alive in ways he hadn't since Rachel died. Noah laughed more, talked more, seemed lighter. How could Daniel take that away from him? The 5th month brought a different kind of complication. Elena showed up one evening with papers. What are these? Daniel asked, looking at the thick folder. Insurance. Medical coverage for you and Noah. It's all set up and paid for the next 5 years. Elena, don't argue. You need it and I have it. That's the end of the discussion. That wasn't part of the deal. The deal changed. She met his eyes. You think I'm going to watch you go without health care when I can fix it with one phone call? Don't be stupid. I'm not a charity case. No, you're my... She stopped, searching for the word. You're my partner in this. And partners take care of each other. Daniel wanted to argue, but the truth was he'd been putting off a dentist appointment for 8 months because he couldn't afford it, and Noah needed new glasses. Thank you, he said quietly. Don't thank me, just use it. But it wasn't just the insurance. Over the next few weeks, things started appearing. New tires on Daniel's truck. Noah's school supplies restocked. Their leaky roof suddenly fixed by a contractor Elena swore she knew from years ago who owed her a favor. Daniel knew what she was doing. She was building something, creating ties that would be hard to break. And the worst part was, he was letting her. They tried again in the 5th month, and this time Daniel felt the weight of it differently. It wasn't just about giving Elena what she wanted anymore. It was about the life they were building together, the family they were becoming whether they meant to or not. After, as they lay in the dark, Elena spoke. If this doesn't work, don't, Daniel said. If this doesn't work, she continued, I don't want to stop seeing you, either of you. Daniel's heart stuttered. What are you saying? I'm saying that somewhere along the way this stopped being about having a child. It started being about... She paused. About not being alone anymore. Elena, I know it's not what we agreed to. I know it complicates everything, but I can't pretend anymore that this is just an arrangement. Not when Noah asks me to read him bedtime stories. Not when you make coffee exactly how I like it without me asking. Not when coming here feels more like home than my house ever has. Daniel turned to look at her in the darkness. What are you saying? I'm saying I care about you, both of you, more than I probably should. The words hung in the air between them. This is a bad idea, Daniel said. I know. We could ruin everything. I know. And you want to do it anyway? Elena was quiet for a long moment. Yeah, I do. Daniel thought about all the reasons to say no, thought about Rachel and the guilt of moving on, thought about Noah and what it would mean if this fell apart, thought about the impossibility of making a relationship work that started with such a broken foundation. Then he thought about Elena's laugh and the way Noah lit up when she walked in. He thought about not being alone anymore. Okay, he said. Okay? Let's try. Not just the baby thing, all of it. He felt Elena's hand find his in the dark. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. She laughed and it sounded like relief. We're either really brave or really stupid. Can it be both? Yeah, she said. I guess it can. They fell asleep like that, hands linked, two broken people trying to build something whole. The shift from arrangement to relationship was messier than Daniel expected. They fought about stupid things, how to load a dishwasher, what time Noah should go to bed, whether Die Hard was a Christmas movie. But they also talked about real things, their fears, their pasts, the futures they were afraid to want. Elena started staying over more nights than not. She had a toothbrush in Daniel's bathroom, clothes in his closet, a coffee mug she claimed as her own. Noah stopped being surprised when she was there for breakfast. "Is Elena your girlfriend?" he asked Daniel one morning. Daniel looked at Elena, who was burning toast and cursing under her breath. "Yeah, buddy, I think she is." "Cool. Can we get a dog now?" "Absolutely not." "Worth a shot." Elena brought a different energy to their small house. She rearranged furniture, bought groceries without asking, argued with Daniel about everything from politics to whether pineapple belonged on pizza. She was stubborn and controlling and used to getting her way, and it drove Daniel crazy. He wouldn't have changed a thing. But there were hard moments too. One night Daniel found her crying in the bathroom, staring at another negative pregnancy test. "I'm sorry," she said when she saw him in the doorway. "For what?" "For not being able to give you what you want." "Hey," he knelt in front of her. "That's not why I'm here. Not anymore." "Then why are you here?" "Because I want to be, because I—" He stopped, the words catching in his throat. "Because what?" "Because I love you," Daniel said, and the admission felt like jumping off a cliff. "And I know that's probably not what you want to hear, and I know it complicates everything, but it's true. I love you, Elena. Baby or no baby." Elena stared at him, tears streaming down her face. "You can't. Too late." "Daniel, you don't know what you're saying. You barely know me. I know you hate mornings. I know you put salt on watermelon and think it's normal. I know you cry during animated movies and pretend you don't. I know you're terrified of failing and even more terrified of succeeding. I know you, Elena, and I love you anyway." She sobbed harder. "I'm broken." "So am I. We can be broken together." "What if I can't love you back? What if I'm too damaged to—" Then we figure it out. But don't tell me you don't feel anything. I see the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching." Elena wiped her eyes with shaking hands. "I'm scared." "Me too. I don't know how to do this. How to be with someone after everything." "Neither do I. But we've been figuring it out for 5 months already. What's a few more?" She laughed through her tears. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not, but it's worth it." Elena pulled him close and kissed him, desperate and messy and real. When they broke apart, she pressed her forehead to his. "I think I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered, "and it terrifies me." "Good," Daniel said. "We can be terrified together." They stayed on the bathroom floor for a long time, holding each other, two people who'd lost everything, learning how to hope again. The 6th month brought unexpected challenges. Elena's business partner, a sharp woman named Catherine, who Daniel met exactly once and immediately disliked, started asking questions about where Elena was spending her time. Word got out that she was dating someone, and suddenly Daniel found himself being scrutinized by people who thought he wasn't good enough for her. "They ran a background check on you," Elena admitted over dinner one night. Daniel's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "What?" Catherine insisted. "I told her to back off, but a background check, like I'm some kind of criminal. I'm sorry, I should have warned you." "What did they find? My massive wealth? My prestigious education?" Daniel's voice was sharp. "Oh, wait. They found out I'm a repairman who barely graduated high school and lives in a house worth less than what you probably spend on clothes." "Daniel, no, it's fine. I get it. I'm not in your league. I never was." "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Use my money as a weapon against me. I don't care about that stuff. You know I don't. But your people do, and eventually you're going to realize they're right." Elena slammed her hand on the table. "Stop putting words in my mouth. I chose you, Daniel, not because of what you have or don't have, but because of who you are. If you can't accept that, then we have bigger problems than Catherine's background check." They stared at each other across the table. "I'm sorry," Daniel said finally. "I'm sorry. You're scared, I get it, but don't push me away because other people are being judgmental. It's hard not to feel like I'm not enough. You're more than enough. You've always been enough." Daniel wanted to believe her. Most days he did. But there were moments when the gap between their worlds felt impossible to bridge. Noah, oblivious to the adult drama, continued to adore Elena without reservation. She took him to a museum one Saturday and came back with stories about dinosaurs and knights, and a kid so excited he could barely sleep that night. "She's the best," Noah told Daniel while being tucked in. "I wish she was here all the time. She's here a lot already. I mean, forever, like how Mama was." Daniel's breath caught. "Buddy, Elena's not replacing Mom." "I know, but she makes you smile again. And me too." Noah yawned. "Is that okay?" "Yeah," Daniel said, his throat tight. "That's okay." "Good. Because I really like her." "Me too, buddy. Me too." The 7th month was when everything changed again. Daniel came home from a job to find Elena's car in the driveway at 2 in the afternoon. She never came over that early on weekdays. He walked inside and found her sitting at the kitchen table, staring at something in her hands. "Elena, what's wrong? Is Noah—" "Noah's fine. He's at school." She looked up at him and her face was unreadable. "I need to show you something." She held out a pregnancy test. Daniel's heart stopped. 2 lines. "Positive." "Is that—" "I took 4. They're all the same." Her voice shook. "Daniel, I'm pregnant." The world tilted sideways. 7 months of trying. 7 months of failures and hope and learning to live with disappointment. And now, "Are you sure?" His voice came out strangled. "I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow to confirm, but—" She laughed, high and slightly hysterical. "I'm late. I'm never late. And I feel different. I think this is real." Daniel crossed the kitchen and pulled her into his arms, and she clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a spinning world. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." "Yeah, we did." They stood in the kitchen holding each other, laughing and crying at the same time, 2 people who'd stopped believing in miracles finally getting one. But underneath the joy, Daniel felt fear creeping in. Because now everything was real. Now there was no going back. Now they had to figure out what came next, and he had no idea what that looked like. The doctor's appointment the next day confirmed what they already knew, but were too afraid to fully believe. Elena was 8 weeks pregnant. 8 weeks of cells dividing and forming into something that would eventually become a person, and neither of them had known until now. Daniel sat in the waiting room while Elena was in the exam room, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. When she finally came out, her face was radiant and terrified in equal measure. "It's real," she said, showing him the ultrasound photo. A tiny blob on grainy black and white paper that didn't look like anything yet, but meant everything. "Yeah," Daniel said, staring at it. "It's real." They sat in his truck in the parking lot for 20 minutes, neither of them quite ready to drive away and make this official. "I don't know what to do now," Elena admitted. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've been so focused on getting pregnant that I didn't think about what comes after. And now it's happening and I'm—" She pressed her hands to her face. "I'm terrified, Daniel. What if I can't do this? What if something goes wrong? What if—" "Hey." He pulled her hands away from her face. "One thing at a time, okay? Right now, you're pregnant. That's enough. We'll figure out the rest as it comes. But what about us? What are we? Are you the father? Are we together? Do we tell people? What about Noah?" The questions came fast and panicked, and Daniel recognized the look in her eyes. Elena was spiraling, her need for control kicking in when everything felt uncertain. "We tell Noah," Daniel said firmly. "He deserves to know. As for everyone else, we tell them whatever you're comfortable with." "What do you want?" "I want you to stop trying to plan everything and just be here, right now, with me." Elena took a shaky breath. "I'm not good at that." "I know, but try anyway." She nodded and leaned her head against his shoulder. They sat like that until the parking lot attendant knocked on the window and told them they needed to move. Telling Noah was harder than Daniel expected. They waited until after dinner, until homework was done and the dishes were washed. Elena looked like she might throw up from nerves, and Daniel wasn't much better. "Buddy, can you come sit with us for a minute?" Daniel called from the living room. "We need to talk to you about something." Noah came in with his favorite dinosaur, suspicious. "Am I in trouble?" "No, nothing like that. Just sit down." Noah climbed onto the couch between them, looking back and forth at their serious faces. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," Elena said quickly. Actually, something really good happened, but it's also kind of big, and we wanted to tell you about it. Okay? Daniel took a breath. Elena's going to have a baby. Noah's eyes went wide. Like a real baby? Yeah, like a real baby. Where's she getting it from? Daniel looked at Elena, who looked back at him. Neither of them had prepared for this question. Well, Elena started carefully, when two people... She stopped, flustered. Daniel, help! The baby's growing inside Elena right now, Daniel said. It's very small, but in about 7 months, it'll be born. Noah processed this information with the seriousness of a Supreme Court judge. Is it a boy or a girl? We don't know yet. It's too early to tell. Can I name it? Probably not the whole name, but maybe you can help pick, Elena said, smiling despite her nerves. Noah thought about this. Then, is the baby going to live here? And there it was, the question that actually mattered. Daniel and Elena exchanged glances. We're still figuring that out, Daniel said honestly, but no matter what, you're always going to be my #1 priority. That doesn't change. Got it? But the baby's going to be your kid too, right? So you'll have 2 kids. Yeah, I will. But that doesn't mean I'm going to love you any less. Love doesn't work like that. It just gets bigger. Noah picked at his dinosaur's tail, thinking. Tommy at school has a baby sister, and he says she's annoying and cries all the time. Babies do cry a lot, Elena admitted, but they also do other stuff too, like smile and laugh and learn new things. I guess that's okay. Noah looked up at Elena. Are you scared? The question caught her off guard. Yeah, buddy, I am. A little bit. Why? Because it's a big responsibility, and I want to make sure I do it right. My dad's really good at being a dad. He can help you. Elena's eyes went bright with tears. Yeah, he can. Thank you for sharing him with me. Noah shrugged like it was no big deal. Can I go play now? Yeah, go ahead. He ran off, apparently unbothered by the news that had been consuming both adults for the last 24 hours. Daniel and Elena sat in stunned silence. That went better than I expected, Daniel said. He's handling it better than I am. Kids are resilient like that. Elena wiped her eyes. He's a good kid. You did that. Rachel did most of it. I'm just trying not to screw it up. You're not screwing it up. She took his hand. And for the record, I'm terrified too. I know, but I'm glad I'm doing this with you. Yeah? Yeah. They sat together on the couch, holding hands, listening to Noah's dinosaurs wage war in the other room. And for a moment, everything felt almost normal. The first trimester was hell. Elena was sick constantly, not just morning sickness, all day, all night, the kind that made her miserable and exhausted. She tried to keep working, tried to maintain her normal schedule, but her body had other plans. Daniel started staying at her place more often because his house didn't have the kind of bathroom she needed when she was throwing up every 2 hours. He'd hold her hair back and bring her water and saltines and feel completely useless. This is supposed to be the miracle of life, Elena said one night, her head resting on the bathroom tile. Why does it feel like I'm dying? Because you're growing a human. That's hard work. I hate this. I know. I'm serious. I really, really hate this. Do you want me to get you anything? A new body and a time machine so I can go back and tell past me what a terrible idea this was. Daniel sat on the floor next to her. You don't mean that. Right now I absolutely mean it. But even as she said it, her hand went to her stomach, protective. The sickness started to ease around week 12, and Elena slowly came back to life. But other problems emerged. Catherine confronted Daniel at Elena's office one afternoon when he came to pick her up. We need to talk, Catherine said, blocking his path to the elevator. About what? About what you're doing to Elena. Daniel bristled. Excuse me? She's not herself. She's distracted, unfocused. She missed 2 important meetings last week. That's not like her. She's pregnant. She's allowed to miss meetings. Is she? Catherine's eyes were cold. Or is she throwing away everything she built because some guy showed up and got her pregnant? That's not what's happening. Isn't it? She's been running this company for 8 years without a single mistake, and now suddenly she can't focus because she's playing house with you? Daniel stepped closer. You don't know anything about us. I know enough. I know you're not from her world. I know you have nothing to offer her except another mouth to feed, and I know that eventually she's going to wake up and realize she made a mistake. Are you done? No, I'm telling you this as someone who cares about her. Walk away now before you ruin her life. That's not your decision to make. Maybe not, but when this falls apart, and it will, don't say I didn't warn you. Catherine walked away, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Daniel stood there, her words echoing in his head. Because the worst part was, some of what she said wasn't wrong. He didn't have anything to offer Elena except himself, and most days he wasn't sure that was enough. When Elena came down, she took one look at his face and frowned. What happened? Catherine happened. What did she say? Doesn't matter. Daniel, I said it doesn't matter. His voice came out harder than he meant it to. Let's just go. They drove in tense silence until Elena finally spoke. She told you to leave me, didn't she? Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. Something like that. And what did you say? I told her to mind her own business. But you're thinking about it. It wasn't a question. I'm always thinking about it, Daniel admitted. Every single day I wonder if you're going to wake up and realize you could do better. There is no better. There's just you. Elena. No, listen to me. I don't care what Catherine thinks. I don't care what anyone thinks. You're the father of my child. You're the person I... She stopped, took a breath. You're the person I want. That's all that matters. What if it's not enough? It is. It has to be. Daniel wanted to believe her, but Catherine's words had planted seeds of doubt that he couldn't quite shake. The tension between them simmered for days. Daniel pulled back without meaning to, creating distance because he didn't know how else to protect himself. Elena noticed but didn't call him on it, maybe because she was dealing with her own fears. It came to a head 2 weeks later at a charity gala Elena had committed to months earlier. You don't have to come, she told Daniel while getting ready. I want to. You hate these things. I hate a lot of things. Doesn't mean I can't show up. The gala was exactly as awful as Daniel expected. Rich people in expensive clothes talking about their summer homes and investment portfolios. He wore a suit Elena bought him that cost more than his monthly rent used to, and he still felt like an imposter. Elena introduced him to people whose names he immediately forgot. He shook hands and smiled and tried not to feel like everyone could see right through him. That's him? He heard someone whisper behind him. That's who Elena's with? I heard he's a plumber or something. Repairman, another voice corrected. Apparently they met when she hired him to fix something. How charitable of her. The laughter that followed made Daniel's jaw tight. He found the bar and ordered a whiskey he didn't really want. Elena was across the room talking to a silver-haired man in a tuxedo who looked like he belonged on a yacht. Daniel watched her laugh at something the man said, watched her hand touch the man's arm, and felt something dark twist in his chest. You look like you'd rather be anywhere else. Daniel turned to find a woman about his age, dark hair, kind eyes, wearing a dress that probably cost as much as his truck. That obvious? Only to someone who feels the same way. I'm Sarah. My husband dragged me here for his firm. She nodded toward a group of lawyers. You? Daniel, my girlfriend. He caught himself. Were they even officially that? Elena asked me to come. Elena Royce? Wow, she's brilliant. I read an article about her company last month. Yeah, she's pretty amazing. Sarah studied him. But you don't feel like you belong here. Is it that obvious? I grew up in a trailer park in Ohio, married a guy who went to Harvard Law. I've been feeling out of place at these things for 15 years. She smiled. It doesn't get easier, but you learn to fake it better. Great, something to look forward to. Can I give you some advice? Sure. Stop looking at all the ways you don't fit and start looking at why she chose you in the first place. Because trust me, women like Elena don't choose random men. She saw something in you that all these people in their expensive suits don't have. And what's that? Something real. Sarah squeezed his arm and walked away, leaving Daniel alone with his drink and his thoughts. He found Elena an hour later on a balcony, getting air. There you are, she said. I was looking for you. Sorry, needed a break from... He gestured vaguely at the party inside. I know. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked you to come. I wanted to support you, but you're miserable. I'm fine. You're lying. She turned to face him. Daniel, if this is too much, if being part of my life is too much, you need to tell me. It's not about that. Then what's it about? He struggled to find the words. I heard people talking about us, about how you're slumming it with the help. Elena's expression hardened. Who? Doesn't matter. They're not wrong. Yes, they are. Am I, though? Look around, Elena. This is your world. These are your people. And I'm the guy who fixes toilets for a living. You think I care about that? I think eventually you will. I think you'll get tired of explaining who I am and why I'm here. I think... He stopped, the words catching. I think I'm terrified that one day you're going to look at me and wonder what the hell you were thinking. Elena grabbed his face with both hands, forcing him to look at her. Listen to me. I don't care what those people think. I don't care that you didn't go to some fancy school or that you don't know which fork to use at dinner. I care that you're kind and honest and that you love your son more than anything. I care that you held my hair while I threw up and didn't complain once. I care that you make me laugh and call me on my crap and that being with you feels like the first real thing I've had in 4 years. Elena, I love you, she said, and the words hit him like lightning. I'm in love with you, Daniel Cross. And I don't care who knows it or what they think about it. So stop looking for reasons why this won't work and start believing that maybe, just maybe, we deserve this. Daniel stared at her, his heart pounding. Say something, Elena whispered. I love you too, he said, and it felt like jumping off a cliff and flying at the same time. I'm completely in love with you, and it scares the hell out of me. She kissed him then, hard and desperate and real, and Daniel kissed her back like she was the only solid thing in a world that wouldn't stop spinning. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena pressed her forehead to his. Let's get out of here, she said. What about the gala? Screw the gala. Let's go home. They left without saying goodbye to anyone, and Daniel didn't feel even a little bit bad about it. The second trimester brought new challenges and unexpected joy. Elena's stomach started to show, a small bump that was impossible to hide. She told her company, and the news spread fast. Daniel heard the whispers, saw the looks, but Elena didn't seem to care. She walked into meetings with her head high, her hand on her belly, daring anyone to say something. Noah became obsessed with the pregnancy. He asked a million questions. What does the baby eat? Can it hear me? Why is Elena's belly getting bigger? Daniel answered as best he could, grateful for the distraction from his own spiraling thoughts. At 20 weeks, they found out they were having a girl. Elena cried when the ultrasound tech told them. Not sad tears, but something else. Relief and joy and terror all mixed together. A girl, she kept saying on the drive home. We're having a girl. Yeah, Daniel said, his own emotions too big to name. That night, alone in Elena's bedroom while she slept, Daniel let himself imagine what their daughter might look like. Would she have Elena's dark hair or his lighter brown? Would she have his nose or Elena's smile? Would she be stubborn like her mother or easygoing like... No, he wasn't easygoing. She'd probably be stubborn. They were both stubborn. He thought about Lily, the daughter Elena had lost. Wondered if this baby would remind Elena of her, if that would be a comfort or another source of pain. He thought about Rachel and what she would think about all this. Would she be happy he'd found someone, or would she feel betrayed that he'd moved on? The questions kept him awake until 3 a.m. At 24 weeks, Elena's business partner pushed back hard. Catherine called an emergency board meeting and tried to force Elena to take leave immediately, claiming her pregnancy was affecting her judgment. Elena fought back, but Daniel could see the toll it was taking. She's trying to push me out, Elena told him after the meeting. She thinks I'm a liability now. Can she do that? Not easily, but she can make my life hell trying. What are you going to do? Fight. This is my company. I built it from nothing, and I'm not letting her take it because I'm pregnant. But the fight exhausted her. Daniel watched her work 12-hour days trying to prove she was still capable, watched her come home drained and stressed and worried about what it was doing to the baby. You need to slow down, he said one night. I can't. Yes, you can. Catherine's not worth this. It's not about Catherine. It's about proving I can do both, be a mother and run a company. If I step back now, everyone will say I was right to doubt myself. Who cares what everyone says? I do. Her voice cracked. I care because I've spent my whole life proving I'm capable, and now everyone's looking at me like I'm fragile, like being pregnant makes me less than what I was. Daniel understood then. This wasn't about Catherine or the company. This was about Elena's fear that motherhood would erase everything else she was. You're not less, he said quietly. You're more. You're doing something most people can't do. Building a human being while running a company. That's not weakness, that's superhuman. I don't feel superhuman. I feel tired and scared and like I'm failing at everything. You're not failing. How do you know? Because you're still here, still fighting. That's not failure, that's courage. Elena broke down then, and Daniel held her while she cried out all the stress and fear and pressure she'd been carrying. At 6 months, everything shifted again. Daniel was at work when he got the call. Elena's number flashed on his screen, and something in his gut told him to answer immediately. Daniel! Her voice was tight with pain. Something's wrong. His blood turned to ice. What kind of wrong? I'm bleeding. Not a lot, but I'm at the office and I'm bleeding and I don't know what to do. Call an ambulance. Right now. I'm on my way. He abandoned the job he was working on, didn't even bother to tell the homeowner he was leaving. Just got in his truck and drove faster than he should have, his hands shaking on the wheel. Please, he thought, please let them be okay. He met the ambulance at Elena's office. She was pale and scared, one hand pressed to her stomach. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. I should have... Stop. Don't apologize. Just breathe. They rushed her to the hospital, and Daniel followed in his truck, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. He called Marcus from the road, asked him to pick up Noah from school and keep him overnight. Is Elena okay? Marcus asked. I don't know yet. Call me when you know something. I will. At the hospital, they made Daniel wait in a room that smelled like antiseptic and fear. He paced for what felt like hours but was probably only 45 minutes. When the doctor finally came out, Daniel couldn't read his expression. Mr. Cross? Is she okay? Is the baby okay? Your girlfriend and daughter are both stable. It was a placental issue. We caught it early. Elena's on bed rest for the next 3 months, and we'll be monitoring closely, but the baby should be fine. Daniel's legs went weak with relief. Can I see her? Room 304. He found Elena hooked up to monitors, her hand on her belly, tears streaming down her face. Hey, he said softly. She looked up and sobbed harder. I almost lost her. But you didn't. She's okay. You're both okay. The doctor said I have to stay in bed for 3 months. No work, no stress, nothing. Daniel, I can't do that. The company, screw the company. But I said screw it. Don't care if Catherine takes over. I don't care if the whole thing falls apart. None of that matters if you're not okay. You don't understand. That company is not as important as you, not as important as our daughter. And if you can't see that, then I'm seeing it for both of us. His voice was firm. You're done working until this baby is born. That's not a request. Elena stared at him. You can't just watch me. I'll call Catherine myself if I have to. Daniel, I almost lost you today. His voice cracked. Both of you. So yeah, I'm being controlling and stubborn, and I don't care. You're staying in bed, and I'm taking care of you, and that's the end of the discussion. For a moment he thought she'd fight him. Then she nodded, exhausted. Okay. Okay? I'm too tired to argue. And you're right. The baby comes first. Daniel pulled a chair next to her bed and took her hand. I love you, both of you. So much it terrifies me. I love you too, Elena whispered. Thank you for fighting for us. Always. They sat together in the hospital room, holding hands, listening to the steady beep of the monitors, and Daniel sent up a silent prayer to whoever might be listening that they'd get through this. 3 months of bed rest turned their lives upside down. Elena moved into Daniel's house because it was smaller and easier to manage. She hated it, hated being helpless, hated depending on people, hated watching her company from the sidelines. But she stayed in bed because the alternative was unthinkable. Daniel quit 2 of his 3 jobs to take care of her. The money was tight again, tighter than it had been in months, but he didn't care. He made her breakfast, brought her books, sat with her while she worried herself sick about things she couldn't control. Noah was surprisingly helpful. He'd bring Elena things without being asked: water, her phone, toons, his dinosaurs when he thought she looked sad. He'd tell her about school and show her his homework, and Daniel watched his 7-year-old son become the kind of kid who cared about people. Rachel would have been proud. At 32 weeks, Elena felt the baby kick for the first time hard enough that Daniel could feel it too. "There," Elena said, pressing his hand to her stomach. "Did you feel that?" "Yeah," Daniel breathed. "I felt it. She's strong. Like her mom." Elena smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it reached her eyes. The final 8 weeks dragged and flew at the same time. Elena got bigger, more uncomfortable, more anxious. Daniel worried constantly, watching her for signs that something was wrong. Noah asked every day if the baby was coming yet. At 38 weeks, Elena woke Daniel in the middle of the night. "It's time," she said. He shot up. "Are you sure?" "My water broke, I'm sure." They got to the hospital at 2 in the morning. The labor was long and difficult. 18 hours of Elena squeezing Daniel's hand hard enough to break bones, of doctors and nurses and monitors everywhere, of both of them too scared to breathe. And then, at 8:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, their daughter was born. She came out screaming, furious at being dragged into the world, and Daniel felt something in his chest crack open. The nurse placed her on Elena's chest, and Elena sobbed while the baby screamed, and Daniel stood there with tears streaming down his face, unable to speak. She was perfect, tiny and red and perfect. "Hey, sweet girl," Elena whispered. "Hey, we've been waiting for you." The baby stopped crying and blinked up at her mother, and Daniel watched Elena fall completely in love. "You did it," he said, his voice thick. "We did it," Elena corrected. They sat together in the hospital room, the three of them, and Daniel thought about how far they'd come from that stormy night when Elena had shown up at his door. He thought about all the failures and fears and moments when they'd almost given up. And he thought about how none of that mattered now because they'd made it through to the other side. They named her Sophie. Not after anyone, not because of some family tradition or meaningful story, just because when Elena held her for the first time and looked into those dark eyes, she said Sophie. And it felt right. Daniel brought Noah to the hospital the next morning. His son stood in the doorway of Elena's room, suddenly shy, staring at the tiny bundle in her arms. "Come here, buddy," Daniel said, guiding him closer. "Come meet your sister." Noah approached slowly, like Sophie might explode if he moved too fast. "She's really small," he whispered. "You were that small once," Elena said. "Want to hold her?" Noah's eyes went wide. "I don't know how." "I'll show you. Sit here." Elena patted the bed beside her. Noah climbed up carefully, and Elena placed Sophie in his arms, keeping her hands ready just in case. Noah held his sister like she was made of glass, his whole body rigid with concentration. "Hi, Sophie," he said quietly. "I'm your big brother. I'm going to teach you about dinosaurs." Sophie yawned, completely unimpressed. Daniel pulled out his phone and took a picture because he knew he'd want to remember this moment forever. His son holding his daughter, Elena watching them both with tears in her eyes, all of them together for the first time. This was his family now. Broken pieces that had somehow fitted themselves into something whole. The first week home was chaos. Sophie cried constantly. She didn't sleep longer than 2 hours at a stretch, which meant nobody else did either. Elena tried to breastfeed and struggled, tried bottles and felt guilty, tried everything the books and websites suggested, and nothing worked quite right. Daniel walked the floors at 3 in the morning with a screaming infant while Elena cried from exhaustion in the bedroom. He changed diapers and warmed bottles and learned that babies could make sounds he didn't know humans were capable of producing. Noah tried to help, but mostly just asked when Sophie would be able to play with him. "Not for a while, buddy," Daniel said, bouncing Sophie against his shoulder. "Babies have to learn to do stuff first." "Like what?" "Like hold their head up and sit and crawl." Noah looked disappointed. "That's going to take forever." "Yeah, probably." "Can I go to Uncle Marcus's house?" Daniel couldn't blame him. "I'll call him." By week 2, Daniel and Elena were running on fumes and tension. "She won't stop crying," Elena said, pacing the living room at midnight with Sophie wailing in her arms. "I've fed her, changed her, burped her, everything. Why won't she stop?" "I don't know. There has to be a reason. Babies don't just cry for no reason." "Maybe she's just, I don't know, being a baby." That's not helpful, Daniel. I'm not trying to be helpful. I'm trying to survive. Elena shot him a look. You think this is easy for me? I didn't say that. You implied it. I didn't imply anything. I'm just tired. Well, so am I, Sophie screamed louder, as if offended by the arguing. Daniel took a breath, trying to rein in his frustration. Give her to me. I can handle it. Elena, you've been holding her for 2 hours. Let me take a turn. She hesitated, then handed Sophie over. The baby kept crying, but Daniel started walking, swaying, humming something that might have been a song if he could remember any actual tunes. Elena sank onto the couch and put her head in her hands. I'm a terrible mother, she said. No, you're not. I can't even calm down my own baby. Neither can I. She's crying right now. Hear that? That's me also failing. But you're not falling apart. Yes, I am. I'm just falling apart quieter. Elena looked up at him, and despite everything, she almost smiled. We're a mess. Yeah, we really are. Sophie finally exhausted herself into silence around 1 a.m. Daniel laid her in the bassinet, and he and Elena collapsed into bed without bothering to change clothes. I love her, Elena whispered in the dark. But this is so much harder than I thought it would be. I know. What if I can't do this? You can. We can. How do you know? Because we don't have a choice. She needs us, so we figure it out. Elena was quiet for a moment. I keep thinking about Lily, about how I did this before and it worked. But I was different then. Marcus was here. And now it's not just you. I'm here. I know. But what if I can't love Sophie the way I loved Lily? What if there's something broken in me that... Stop. Daniel turned to face her in the darkness. You love her. I see it every time you look at her. You're just scared because you remember what it's like to lose someone you love that much. Of course I'm scared. What if something happens to her? Then we deal with it. But you can't live your whole life afraid of losing her. That's not fair to either of you. Elena's breath hitched. I don't know how to not be afraid. You think I do? Every time Noah's out of my sight, I panic. Every time he's late coming home from school, I imagine the worst. That doesn't go away. You just learn to live with it. That sounds exhausting. It is. Welcome to parenthood. Elena laughed, tired and broken. We're really doing this, aren't we? Looks like it. Together? Yeah, together. She kissed him then, soft and grateful, and they fell asleep holding hands across the sheets. By week 3, they'd found something resembling a rhythm. Sophie still cried more than she slept, but they learned her patterns. Learned that she liked being swaddled tight and hated being too warm. Learned that she'd calm down if Daniel walked her around the backyard at dawn. Learned that Elena could get her to sleep by singing, even though Elena swore she couldn't carry a tune. Noah adjusted to being a big brother with the resilience only kids seem to have. He learned to be quieter when Sophie was sleeping and louder when she was awake because babies like noise, Dad said so. Daniel went back to work part-time, leaving Elena alone with Sophie during the day. It terrified both of them. What if something happens? Elena asked the night before his first shift back. Then you call me and I come home. What if I don't know what to do? You figure it out. That's what we've been doing for 3 weeks. But you'll have your phone on, right? I'll have my phone on. She called him 4 times that first day. Once because Sophie wouldn't eat. Once because she wouldn't stop crying. Once because she'd gone quiet and Elena panicked that something was wrong. And once just to hear his voice. Daniel answered every time without complaint. When he got home that evening, he found Elena on the couch, with Sophie asleep on her chest, both of them looking exhausted, but okay. We survived, Elena said. Yeah, you did. I still hated every minute of it. That's allowed. She looked up at him. Is it wrong that I miss working? That I miss my office and having adult conversations and doing something where I actually know what I'm doing? No, that's normal. It doesn't feel normal. It feels like I'm a bad mother for wanting something besides this. Daniel sat down next to her. You're not a bad mother. You're a person who had a whole life before Sophie, and you're allowed to miss parts of it. Catherine called today. What did she want? To tell me the company's falling apart without me. To ask when I'm coming back. Elena's voice went flat. To remind me that I'm replaceable. You're not replaceable. Maybe not. But she's right that they need me. And I want to go back, Daniel. I want to, but I can't leave Sophie, not yet. Maybe not ever, and I don't know how to do both. So don't. Not right now. Give yourself time. I've been giving myself time. It's been 3 weeks and I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing. 3 weeks is nothing. You need months, maybe years. Elena closed her eyes. I can't take years off. The company will survive. You need to focus on surviving. I hate that you're right. Get used to it. I'm right about lots of things. Name one other thing. Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Elena laughed despite herself. That's still up for debate. Not in this house, it's not. They sat together in the quiet, Sophie sleeping between them, and Daniel thought about how much their lives had changed in less than a year. How he'd gone from barely surviving to having more than he'd ever imagined wanting. At 6 weeks, Elena's parents came to visit. Daniel had heard about them, but never met them. They lived in Connecticut and hadn't approved of Elena's choices in years, but apparently a new grandchild was enough to bridge that gap. They showed up in a Mercedes and designer clothes, looking at Daniel's small house like it might give them a disease. So you're Daniel, Elena's mother said, not quite offering her hand. Yes, ma'am. Nice to meet you. And this is where Elena's been living? Mom, Elena warned. I'm just saying, darling, you have a perfectly good house. This is closer to Daniel's work and Noah's school. Her father studied Daniel like he was a specimen under glass. What is it you do, exactly? I'm a repairman. Plumbing, electrical, general maintenance. How industrious. The words dripped with condescension. The visit went downhill from there. Elena's parents cooed over Sophie but made pointed comments about everything else. The house, the neighborhood, Daniel's job, their unconventional relationship. Nothing was good enough, refined enough, appropriate enough. Noah asked if they were mean people. Just different, buddy, Daniel said, though he privately agreed. The breaking point came at dinner. So when are you two getting married? Elena's mother asked over chicken Daniel had grilled. We haven't discussed it, Elena said tightly. You have a child together. Don't you think it's time to make things official? We're doing fine as we are. Are you, though? Her father set down his fork. Because from where I'm sitting, this whole situation is highly irregular. You're living in a house you don't own with a man you barely know, raising a child out of wedlock. What kind of example is that for your daughter? Don't, Elena said, her voice dangerous. We're just concerned, sweetheart. You've made some questionable choices lately. Questionable choices? Elena's laugh was sharp. You mean having a child? Finding someone who actually cares about me? We mean throwing away your career and your reputation for... Her mother glanced at Daniel. For someone who can't provide the life you're accustomed to. Daniel stood. I think you should leave. Elena's father raised an eyebrow. Excuse me, you heard me? This is my house, and you don't get to come in here and insult me or Elena or the life we're building. So either you apologize or you leave. How dare you apologize or leave? Those are your options. There was a long, tense silence. Elena's mother stood, gathering her purse. Well, I can see why you fit so well together. You're both impossibly stubborn. That's not an apology, Daniel said. Come on, Robert. We're clearly not wanted here. They left without saying goodbye to Sophie. Elena sat at the table, shaking. Daniel expected her to be angry at him for kicking out her parents, but when she looked up, she was smiling. Thank you, she said. For what? For standing up for us. For not letting them make you feel small. They tried, though. They always do, but you didn't fold. That's... Her voice caught. That means everything. Daniel pulled her into a hug. Nobody talks about you like that. I don't care who they are. Even my parents. Especially your parents. Noah wandered in from where he'd been hiding in his room. Are the mean people gone? Yeah, buddy, they're gone. Good. They made Elena sad. I'm okay, Elena assured him. Thanks for checking. Can we have dessert now? Daniel laughed. Yeah, we can have dessert. They ate ice cream in the living room while Sophie slept, and Daniel thought about how families weren't always the people you were born to. Sometimes they were the people you chose. At 3 months, Sophie started smiling. Real smiles, not just gas. She'd look at Elena or Daniel or Noah, and her whole face would light up, and it made every sleepless night worth it. Noah was obsessed. He'd make faces at her for hours trying to get her to smile at him. Look, Dad, she likes me. Of course she likes you. You're her big brother. Elena started talking about going back to work, and Daniel could see how torn she was. She missed it, missed the challenge and the routine and the sense of doing something she was good at. But leaving Sophie felt impossible. What if I do part-time? She suggested one night. 3 days a week, work from home the other 2? If that's what you want. Is it wrong that I want it? No. You're allowed to want things besides being a mom. Catherine would have her 3 days a week, though. She'd use that to push me out. Then don't give her the chance. Come back strong. Show her you can do both. Elena looked at him. You really think I can? I know you can. You're the most capable person I've ever met. You just have to trust yourself. She started back part-time the following month. The first day she came home crying because she'd missed Sophie so much. The second day was easier. By the end of the first week, she'd fired Catherine and taken back full control of her company. What happened? Daniel asked when she told him. She tried to make a major decision without consulting me. Said since I was only there part-time, she needed to step up. So I reminded her who actually owns the company and suggested she find somewhere else to step up. Bet that went over well. She threatened to sue. I reminded her about the non-compete clause in her contract. She left by lunch. Daniel kissed her. That's my girl. Your girl is terrifying when angry. I know, it's hot. Elena laughed and pulled him closer. And for the first time in months, Daniel felt like they might actually survive this. At 6 months, Sophie started eating solid foods and became a tiny person instead of just a screaming potato. She had Elena's dark hair and Daniel's hazel eyes. She laughed at Noah's jokes even though she couldn't possibly understand them. She grabbed everything in reach and tried to eat it. Daniel fell more in love with her every day. But as Sophie grew, other tensions emerged. They still hadn't talked about marriage, about what they were officially, about where this was all going. They existed in this limbo of commitment without definition, and Daniel could feel Elena getting restless. What are we? She asked one night after Sophie was asleep. What do you mean? I mean, what are we, Daniel? Are you my boyfriend, my partner, Sophie's father, all of the above? All of the above. But what does that mean? Are we building a life together, or are we just coexisting because we have a child? Daniel set down the dish he was washing. What brought this on? I had to fill out paperwork for Sophie's daycare. There was a section for father's information, and I didn't know what to put. Are you her father legally? Do you have rights to her? What happens if something happens to me? Nothing's going to happen to you. But what if it does? What if I get hit by a bus tomorrow? What happens to Sophie? Elena, I need to know, Daniel. I need to know that if something happens to me, she'll be okay. That you'll keep her. The fear in her voice was palpable. Of course I'd keep her. She's my daughter. But legally she's not. We're not married. Your name's not even on her birth certificate. Daniel felt like he'd been punched. What? I didn't know what to do. We hadn't talked about it, so I just put myself. You didn't think to ask me? I was scared. What if you decided you didn't want this? What if you walked away? I wouldn't walk away. You don't know that. Yes, I do. I love you. I love Sophie. I love this life we're building. Why would I walk away from that? People leave all the time, Daniel. They say they won't, but they do. I'm not them. Then prove it. Elena's voice was challenging. Make this official, not because you have to, but because you want to. Daniel stared at her. Are you asking me to marry you? I'm asking you to figure out what you want, because I can't keep living in this uncertainty. She walked out of the kitchen, leaving Daniel standing there with soapy hands and a head full of questions. He thought about it for 3 days. Thought about Rachel and whether marrying someone else felt like betrayal. Thought about Sophie and what kind of stability she deserved. Thought about Elena and how much she'd already lost and how scared she was of losing more. On the 4th day, he talked to Noah. Can I ask you something, buddy? Noah looked up from his dinosaurs. Okay. How would you feel if Elena became part of our family, like officially? She already is part of our family. I mean legally, if I married her. Noah thought about this. Would she move in here forever? Probably. Or we'd move somewhere bigger together. And Sophie would be my real sister? She already is your real sister. But like, forever sister? Not just for now sister? Yeah, forever sister. Noah nodded seriously. Okay, that's good. So you'd be okay with it? Yeah, Elena's nice, and she makes you happy. Mom would want you to be happy. The simplicity of it hit Daniel hard. His 7-year-old son had figured out what he'd been struggling with for days. Thanks, buddy. Can I ask you something now? Sure. Can we get a dog? Still no. Worth a shot. That night, after Sophie was asleep and Elena was working in the living room, Daniel sat down next to her on the couch. I want to marry you, he said. Elena's fingers froze on her laptop keyboard. What? I want to marry you. Not because you're scared or because of Sophie, because I love you and I want to build a life with you. A real life, not just coexisting. Daniel, I don't have a ring. I don't have some big romantic gesture planned, but I'm asking anyway. Will you marry me? Elena's eyes filled with tears. You're serious? Completely. What about Rachel? Rachel's gone. And I think she'd want me to be happy. She'd want Noah to have a family. She'd want us to move forward. What if I'm not enough? What if I can't be what you need? You're already what I need. You have been since that night you showed up in the rain looking terrified and desperate and brave. Elena laughed through her tears. I was desperate. You were brave. And I fell in love with you even though I tried not to, even though it scared me, even though it meant letting go of someone I thought I'd never get over. Do you really want this? More than anything. Even though I'm controlling and stubborn and terrible at asking for help? Especially because of that. You make me crazy, Elena, but you also make me happy. And I want to keep being crazy and happy with you for the rest of my life. Elena set aside her laptop and kissed him, hard and desperate and full of all the things she couldn't say. When she pulled back, she was smiling. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. Yeah? Yeah. They sat on the couch holding each other, and Daniel felt something settle in his chest that had been restless for years. This was right. This was home. We should tell Noah, Elena said. He already knows. I asked him first. You asked your 7-year-old for permission? It's his family too. He deserved a say. Elena's expression went soft. Have I mentioned I love you? Once or twice, but I don't mind hearing it again. I love you, Daniel Cross. And I'm terrified and excited, and I have no idea how we're going to make this work, but I want to try. That's all we've been doing from the start. Trying. We're pretty good at it. We're okay at it. I'll take okay. They fell asleep on the couch that night, wrapped around each other, and when Sophie woke them at 3 a.m. crying, they got up together. Planning a wedding while raising an infant turned out to be exactly as chaotic as it sounded. Elena wanted something small and meaningful. Daniel wanted whatever made her happy. They compromised on a ceremony at the house with close friends and family, which meant about 30 people crammed into Daniel's backyard on a Saturday in October. The week before the wedding, everything that could go wrong did. Sophie got a fever that sent them to the emergency room at 2 a.m. The caterer canceled because of a family emergency. Elena's dress arrived 2 sizes too small, and Noah announced he didn't want to be the ring bearer because Tommy at school said weddings were boring. This was a mistake, Elena said Thursday night, sitting on the kitchen floor with Sophie on her lap and a stack of unpaid invoices next to her. We should have just gone to City Hall. It's not a mistake, it's just hard. Everything's hard. Getting pregnant was hard. Having Sophie was hard. And now this is hard too. And I'm starting to think maybe we're not supposed to Don't finish that sentence. Elena looked up at him, exhausted. I'm not saying I don't want to marry you. I'm saying maybe we're cursed or something. Maybe we're not meant to have easy things. Daniel sat down next to her on the floor. When have we ever had easy things? Never. That's my point. So why would the wedding be any different? He took Sophie from her arms, bouncing the baby against his shoulder. We've been doing hard things since the day we met. We're good at hard things. I'm tired of being good at hard things. I want one thing, just one, to be simple. Then we make it simple. Forget the caterer. We'll order pizza. Forget the perfect dress. Wear whatever you want. And if Noah doesn't want to carry the rings, we'll find someone else. It's supposed to be special. It will be special because we're getting married. The rest is just details. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. When did you become the optimistic one? About 5 minutes ago. Don't get used to it. She laughed, tired but real. I love you. I love you too. Even when you're having a meltdown on the kitchen floor. Especially when I'm having a meltdown on the kitchen floor. That too. They stayed like that for a while, the three of them on the floor, and Daniel thought about how this was what marriage would be, sitting on floors when things fell apart and figuring out how to stand back up together. The day of the wedding arrived with clear skies and cool air. Elena's friend Sarah, the woman Daniel had met at the gala months ago, showed up at 8 in the morning with coffee and a dress that actually fit. How did you... I called the designer, explained the situation. She overnighted this one. Sarah handed Elena the garment bag. Try it on. The dress fit perfectly, simple, elegant, nothing like the elaborate thing Elena had originally ordered. She looked at herself in the mirror and started crying. Happy tears or panic tears? Sarah asked. I don't know. Both? That's normal. I cried for 3 hours before my wedding. My husband thought I was having second thoughts. Were you? Absolutely. But I married him anyway, and it turned out fine. Sarah handed her tissues. You're allowed to be scared, Elena. Getting married is terrifying, especially when you've already lost everything once. What if something happens to him? What if I lose Daniel the way I lost Marcus? Then you'll survive it the way you survived losing Marcus. Because that's what you do, you survive. But you can't live your whole life preparing for the worst. At some point, you have to take the risk. Elena wiped her eyes. That's either really wise or really reckless. It's both. Most good things are. Downstairs, Daniel was having his own crisis. Marcus found him in the bedroom trying to tie his tie for the 4th time. You're making it worse, Marcus said, taking over. Hold still. I don't know why I'm so nervous. We've been living together for months. We already have a kid. Because marriage is different. It's official. It's permanent. And you're scared you're going to screw it up. Thanks. Super helpful. I'm just being honest. Marcus finished the tie. But for what it's worth, I don't think you're going to screw it up. You don't? Nah. You and Elena, you guys work. I didn't see it at first, but you balance each other out. She's all control and planning. You're all heart and instinct. Together, you actually make sense. She's way out of my league, though. So? Rachel was out of your league, too. Didn't stop you from being happy with her. The mention of Rachel made Daniel's chest tight. You think she'd be okay with this? With me marrying someone else? Marcus was quiet for a moment. I think Rachel would want you to be happy. And I think she'd like Elena. They're both stubborn and smart and don't take any of your crap. You're really selling this. I'm saying you have a type, and that's not a bad thing. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. Rachel's gone, Danny. She's been gone for almost 3 years. And you've been doing everything you can to honor her memory while also moving forward. That's not betrayal. That's survival. That's living. Daniel nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Now pull yourself together, Marcus said. You've got a wedding in 2 hours and a woman downstairs who's probably freaking out worse than you are. The ceremony was supposed to start at 2. By 1:30, people were arriving and the backyard looked almost magical. Marcus and some friends had strung lights between the trees. Noah had picked wildflowers and put them in mason jars. Sophie was dressed in a tiny white dress and kept trying to eat her shoes. Daniel stood under the makeshift arch Marcus had built, watching people find seats in the mismatched chairs they'd borrowed from neighbors. His hands were shaking. The officiant, a friend of Elena's who'd gotten certified online just for this, leaned over. Nervous? Terrified. That's a good sign. Means you care. At 2 o'clock, music started playing from someone's iPhone speaker. Noah walked down the aisle first, carrying the rings on a pillow and looking serious enough to be a pallbearer. People laughed. Then Sarah appeared with Sophie, who was supposed to be the flower girl, but was mostly just confused about why everyone was staring at her. And then Elena stepped out of the house. Daniel forgot how to breathe. She wasn't wearing the elaborate dress she'd originally planned. This one was simple, fitted, the color of champagne. Her hair was down, loose around her shoulders. No veil, no dramatic entrance. Just Elena, walking toward him with tears already streaming down her face. When she reached him, she whispered, I almost ran. Why didn't you? Because I love you more than I'm scared of losing you. The officiant cleared her throat. Should we start? They'd written their own vows. Daniel went first, pulling a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. I'm not good at words, he started, his voice shaking. I fix things for a living. Broken pipes, faulty wiring, stuff that doesn't work right. But when you showed up at my door that night, I couldn't fix what was broken in you, and you couldn't fix what was broken in me. So instead, we just sat with the broken parts. And somewhere along the way, being broken together started to feel like being whole. He looked up from the paper, straight at Elena. You scare me. The way I feel about you scares me. Because I lost everything once, and I know what that feels like. And loving you means risking that pain all over again. But I'm done running from things that scare me. I'm done playing it safe. You asked me for the impossible, and I said yes, and that turned into the best decision I ever made. So I'm saying yes again. To you, to us, to whatever comes next. Even the scary parts. Especially the scary parts. Elena was openly crying now. She pulled out her own paper, hands trembling. I've given a lot of speeches in my life, she said. Board meetings, investor pitches, conferences. I'm good at speeches. But standing here trying to put into words what you mean to me, I can't. Because there aren't words big enough. She took a shaky breath. You were supposed to be a means to an end, a way to get something I wanted. But you turned into home. You turned into the person who sees all my worst parts and doesn't run. The person who calls me on my control issues and my fear and my stubborn refusal to ask for help. The person who makes me want to be better, not for you, but for myself. She looked at Noah, then at Sophie in Sarah's arms. You gave me a family when I thought I'd lost my chance at having one. You gave me hope when I'd given up. You gave me Sophie, who is everything I didn't know I still needed, and you did it all without asking for anything in return except honesty. She turned back to Daniel. So here's my honesty. I'm terrified. I'm terrified I'll lose you. I'm terrified I'll mess this up. I'm terrified that one day you'll realize you could have done better. But I'm more terrified of not trying, of walking away from this because I'm scared. So I'm staying. I'm choosing you. Every day for the rest of my life, I'm choosing you. There wasn't a dry eye in the backyard. The officiant had to wipe her own face before continuing. Do you, Daniel Cross, take Elena Royce to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. And do you, Elena Royce, take Daniel Cross to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Then by the power vested in me by the internet, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Daniel pulled Elena close and kissed her while everyone cheered and Sophie screamed and Noah yelled, "Gross!" from the front row. It was messy and imperfect and absolutely right. When they broke apart, Elena was laughing through her tears. We did it, she said. Yeah, we did. Now what? Now we eat pizza and dance badly and go home. That's your plan for our wedding reception? You got a better one? Not even a little bit. They did exactly that. Ate pizza on paper plates, danced to music from a playlist Marcus made, and celebrated with people who loved them. Sophie fell asleep on Sarah's shoulder. Noah taught some of the adults his dance moves. Elena's shoes came off after 20 minutes. It wasn't elegant or sophisticated or anything like what Elena had probably imagined for her wedding, but it was real and joyful and theirs. Around 7, after most of the guests had left, Daniel found Elena sitting on the back steps watching the sunset. You okay? He asked, sitting next to her. More than okay. It was perfect. It was chaos. Perfect chaos. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Thank you. For what? For saying yes that first night. For not giving up when things got hard. For building this life with me even when neither of us knew what we were doing. We still don't know what we're doing. No, but we're doing it together now. Officially. Daniel kissed the top of her head. Officially. They sat together watching the light fade, and Daniel thought about the woman who'd shown up at his door in a storm, looking desperate and broken. He thought about how far they'd both come, how many times they'd almost given up, how many moments of doubt and fear they'd pushed through. And he thought about how none of it had been easy, but all of it had been worth it. The first year of marriage was an adjustment, not because they fought more or loved each other less, but because making it official somehow made everything feel more permanent. The stakes were higher. The commitment was deeper. Walking away wasn't really an option anymore, which meant they had to work through things they might have once let slide. They fought about money, about whose career took priority when Sophie was sick, about whether to stay in Daniel's small house or move somewhere bigger, about discipline strategies for Noah and sleep training for Sophie and whose turn it was to do the dishes. Normal fights, married people fights. But they also laughed more than they had in the early days, found rhythms that worked, learned each other's patterns and triggers, and how to de-escalate before things got ugly. Elena went back to work full-time when Sophie turned 1, and Daniel picked up more hours to balance out the childcare. They hired a nanny for the days when both of them were working, a grandmother type who Noah adored and Sophie tolerated. Life became routine in a way it hadn't been before. School runs and work calls and dinner at 6 and bedtime at 8. Grocery shopping on Saturdays and family movie night on Sundays. The kind of ordinary that Daniel had once taken for granted, but now recognized as precious. Sophie grew fast. She started walking at 11 months, talking at 13 months, getting into everything by 15 months. She had Elena's stubbornness and Daniel's laugh, and an opinion about everything. Noah turned 8 and decided he was too old for bedtime stories, but still wanted Daniel to tuck him in. He excelled at school, made friends easily, and treated Sophie with the patience of a saint most days and the frustration of an older sibling the rest. They were becoming a real family, not the broken pieces trying to fit together anymore, but something whole and functional and theirs. On their first anniversary, Daniel took Elena to the diner where they'd had their first real conversation. "I can't believe we're back here," Elena said, sliding into the same booth they'd sat in over a year ago. Full circle. More like upward spiral. We're in a better place than we were then. "You think?" "I know. A year ago I was terrified you'd change your mind. Now I'm just terrified you'll leave the toilet seat up." Daniel laughed. "That's what a year of marriage gets you. Lower stakes fears." "I'll take it." They ordered coffee and pie and talked about everything and nothing. About Sophie's latest words and Noah's upcoming science fair and whether they should finally get the dog Noah kept asking for. "Absolutely not," Elena said. "That's what I told him." "Good. We're united. We're something." Elena reached across the table and took his hand. "We're happy. That's something." And she was right, despite everything, the hard parts and the scary parts, and the parts where they didn't know what they were doing, they were happy. When Sophie turned 2, they finally moved. Not to Elena's old house, which had sat empty for months while they figured things out. They sold that place and bought something new, a house in a good school district with a yard big enough for Noah to play in and a room for Sophie that wasn't a converted office. Moving meant going through everything they owned, and that meant confronting the past. Daniel found boxes of Rachel's things he'd never unpacked, clothes and books and photos he'd shoved into storage because looking at them hurt too much. He sat in the new house's empty living room with those boxes and finally let himself remember. Rachel laughing at his terrible jokes, Rachel singing off key while cooking, Rachel holding Noah as a baby and looking at Daniel like he'd hung the moon. He cried. First time in over a year. Just sat there and cried for what he'd lost and what he'd found, and how unfair it was that he couldn't have both. Elena found him there an hour later. She didn't say anything, just sat down next to him and looked through the photos while he cried. "She was beautiful," Elena said finally. "Yeah, you loved her a lot." "I did." "Do you still?" Daniel looked at her. "Yeah, I always will. But it's different now. It doesn't hurt the same way." "Because of me?" "Because of time. Because of healing. Because I learned that you can love someone who's gone and someone who's here at the same time. They're different kinds of love." Elena nodded slowly. "I think about Marcus and Lily every day. Sometimes I feel guilty that I'm happy when they're gone. Like I don't deserve this because they didn't get to have it. They'd want us to be happy." "Would they?" "Yeah, I think they would. I think they'd want us to live the lives they didn't get to finish." They sat together in the empty room surrounded by boxes, and Daniel thought about how grief never really goes away. It just becomes part of who you are. You learn to carry it alongside the joy and the hope and the new love you find. The house slowly came together. They painted walls and hung pictures and turned empty rooms into spaces that felt like home. Noah picked out decorations for his room, half dinosaurs, half soccer posters. Sophie's room was purple because she'd developed an obsession with the color that reminded Elena painfully and wonderfully of Lily. They had a housewarming party in December. Not fancy, just friends and family, and pizza in the new living room. Marcus brought beer, Sarah brought wine. The nanny brought a plant that would probably die within a month. Noah gave tours to anyone who'd listen. Sophie showed off her purple room to everyone whether they wanted to see it or not. Daniel stood in the kitchen watching it all and felt something settle in his chest. This was it. This was the life he'd been fighting for without knowing what it would look like. Elena found him there. Hiding? Observing. Same thing. She wrapped her arms around him from behind. Thank you. For what? For this. For all of it. For saying yes when any sane person would have said no. Who says I'm sane? Fair point. They stood together watching their friends and family fill their new home with noise and laughter, and Daniel thought about that stormy night when Elena had shown up desperate and shaking. If someone had told him then where they'd end up, he never would have believed it. But here they were, married, happy, whole. On Sophie's third birthday, Elena made an announcement. They were having another baby. Daniel dropped the cake he was carrying. You're what? Pregnant, about 8 weeks. I found out yesterday. But we didn't plan. I know. But apparently my body had other ideas. Daniel stared at her, his mind racing. How do you feel about it? Terrified. Excited. All of the above. Elena's hand went to her stomach. I didn't think I wanted more kids after Sophie. I thought one was enough, but now that it's happening, I'm happy, Daniel. Is that okay? Of course it's okay. He pulled her into a hug. We're doing this again? Looks like it. We're either really brave or really stupid. Definitely stupid, but we're good at stupid decisions. They told the kids that night. Noah was thrilled at the prospect of another sibling. Sophie was confused about where babies came from, but excited about not being the youngest anymore. The second pregnancy was easier than the first. Elena wasn't as sick, wasn't as scared. She knew what to expect this time. Daniel knew how to help. They had a boy in the spring. Named him James after Daniel's grandfather. He had Elena's dark eyes and Daniel's nose and cried less than Sophie had, but ate like he was training for a competition. Noah took his role as big brother to two seriously. Sophie was less impressed, but tolerated the new addition. And Daniel and Elena figured out how to juggle 3 kids, 2 careers, and a marriage without losing their minds completely. It wasn't perfect. It was messy and chaotic and exhausting most days. But it was theirs. Built from broken pieces and desperate choices, and the kind of love that doesn't quit even when it gets hard. 5 years after that stormy night, Daniel woke up in a house full of noise. Sophie and James were fighting over a toy downstairs. Noah was getting ready for school and complaining about his math homework. Elena was on a work call in the office, trying to sound professional while James screamed in the background. It was chaos. Complete chaos. And Daniel wouldn't change a thing. He got up, broke up the fight between Sophie and James, helped Noah with his math, and brought Elena coffee while she mouthed "thank you" during her call. This was his life now. Not the quiet, careful existence he'd built after Rachel died. Not the desperate survival mode he'd been in when Elena first showed up. Something new. Something loud and messy and full. That night, after the kids were asleep and Elena was finishing paperwork, Daniel stood in the backyard looking at the house. Lights on in every room. Toys scattered across the lawn. A life so full it spilled out the windows. Elena joined him outside. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "About how none of this was planned. How we stumbled into it by accident. Best accident I ever made." "Me too." They stood together in the dark, and Daniel thought about all the moments that had led them here. All the choices, good and bad. All the fears they'd pushed through. All the times they'd almost given up, but didn't. "I love you," he said. "I love you too." Even when it's hard? Especially when it's hard. Because that was the truth they'd learned together. Love wasn't just the easy moments. It was the 3 a.m. feedings and the fights about whose turn it was to do laundry. It was the fear of loss and the courage to love anyway. It was choosing each other every single day, even when it would be easier not to. It was showing up in a storm and asking for the impossible. It It was saying yes when you had every reason to say no. It was broken people building something whole. And maybe that was the lesson in all of this, that wholeness doesn't come from being unbroken. It comes from finding someone willing to sit with your broken pieces and help you build something new. It comes from taking risks on desperate nights and saying yes to impossible things. It comes from choosing love even when love has hurt you before. Daniel had lost everything once, twice, if you counted the life he'd had before Elena. But standing in his backyard with his wife beside him and his kids asleep upstairs, he realized something important. Loss hadn't destroyed him. It had just made room for something different, something harder, messier, more complicated than what he'd had before, but also something real and deep and worth every terrifying moment it took to get here. "Come on," Elena said, taking his hand. "Let's go to bed before one of them wakes up." "Probably too late for that." "Probably. But we can hope." They walked inside together, and Daniel closed the door on the night and the past and all the what-ifs that didn't matter anymore. This was his life now. This beautiful, chaotic, imperfect life that started with a desperate woman in a storm and turned into everything he didn't know he needed, and he wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.